Hi, I'm Mike, and welcome to Red Cell Confidential. This podcast is about using guerrilla tactics to attack social injustice. Now let's get the legal in terms of service stuff out of the way right off the bat. This is not a children's program. The subject matter and my language will occasionally be unsuited for family hour. This is not about inciting violence or planning an armed insurrection. The first case is counterproductive, and the second is just an incredibly stupid fantasy. This podcast is simply about using innovative, practical means to win the hearts and minds of the people in our local communities, which is exactly where social revolutions take root. Now, if you're ready to take action, the kind of action that actually produces results, then stay tuned. Last week, we began a discussion about operational security. We talked about blending in and being aware, among other things. If you haven't listened to that episode, you might want to go back and review it before going on with this one. That was a more general discussion about things everybody should be doing. This week, we're going to take a deeper dive. This still falls under the operational security or OPSEC heading, but this week we'll be discussing communication security and the color code system of operational awareness. Let's get started. Last week, we discussed blending in and focusing your awareness on certain things that'll help you blend in. If you live in a fairly liberal area, that might be enough to keep you out of trouble. On the other hand, if, like me, you live deep in Trump country, you might want to take a few extra steps for the sake of your mission and for your own personal safety. Let's talk about communication security. The first thing we want to do is take a look at your mail. Everybody else is. Let's be frank, the postman is not your friend. You have a few things to watch out for in regards to your postal service. While generally too busy to scrutinize everybody's mail, they are not blind. Over time, they do get familiar with certain people on their routes. If you continually get mail from an unusual political organization, meaning something other than the DNC or the GOP, they will notice, and they do talk. More to the point, from time to time, my mail gets delivered to the wrong box. That's not a big problem, except that a couple of the people that these letters get delivered to are pretty right-wing. One of them, in fact, left his huge Trump 2020 banner hanging on the front of his house for 6 months after the election was over with. Enough said? Alright, your phone is problematic, more or less so, depending on what brand you use. Obviously, you don't want someone picking it up and looking through your messages, email, contacts, and Twitter feed. That's easy enough to fix. Don't leave your phone laying around or loan it out. Use a lock code that's not easy to guess. If you have a biometric recognition system on your phone, that's even better. Another concern is the amount of information your phone is constantly broadcasting that you're not even aware of. A lot of it is innocuous and some of it isn't. Now, I'm not going into a deep dive here. You're probably already aware that there are personal privacy issues associated with your cell phone. If not, a YouTube search on cell phone security will provide you with enough information to give you nightmares. You'll also find solutions to most of those problems. Simple if you have an iPhone, not so simple if you have an Android. Remember, Google's business model is based on collecting and selling your information. Now, after you've educated yourself about the phone problem, don't go all paranoid, throw away your phone and grab a tinfoil hat. The really scary surveillance stuff requires a level of knowledge and investment in technology that suggests you really don't have to worry about it unless you've done something to put yourself on law enforcement's or the intelligence community's radar. As long as you're paying attention to the other areas of OPSEC and using common sense, you don't have a lot to worry about. Now, let's talk a bit about social media. There's a two-edged sword. If you're an activist, social media is a very important part of your operational strategy. You use it to gather intelligence, broadcast your message, communicate with your base, as well as staying in touch with your family and friends, paying your bills, and other personal stuff. Unless you're brain dead, you know that there are bots out there searching your communications for keywords linked to terrorist activities, tracking your searches, purchases, and everything else in order to tweak your online experience so that they can influence your thinking and behavior. Mostly so they can sell you stuff. The best OPSEC advice that I can give you is to be aware of what you're doing and what it says about you. Before you like, repost, or retweet something, think about what it says about you when people see it on your feed, about what people are likely to infer from your posts. You have some decisions to make. For example, if you repost a lot of stuff from Fox News or talking heads like Tucker Carlson, that's great camouflage for your leftist agenda. On the other hand, it will make informed people think that you're an idiot. Just saying. Be aware. During World War II, they circulated a motto, "Loose lips sink ships." That's a good one. As a Cold War era veteran, civilian on contract to DOD, and someone who held a security clearance, watching what I said, who I said it to, and who might overhear me became a way of life. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You probably don't have to be that paranoid, but if you want to maintain your low profile so that you can accomplish your mission, then you need to be aware, cautious, and make sure that any comrades you may be working with also maintain communication security. Enough said? While we're at it, let's talk a little more about your state of awareness. It's critical. To be frank, most people walk around in a daze, either so focused on their destination and what might happen when they get there, or their head buried in their phone trying to see if anybody liked their Facebook post, or totally in a daydream la-la land that they might as well wear a neon sign that says victim. Don't be like most people. Observational skills like reading a crowd and detecting infiltrators should be in the toolbox of every activist. Let's start with the basics and keep it simple for now. The military developed an alertness color code system for soldiers on patrol that was adopted and needlessly complicated by Homeland Security after 9/11. You may remember it. For our purposes, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to look at 3 zones of awareness: white, yellow, and red. The white zone is where you are most of the time, usually in a place where you feel safe and comfortable. Doing household chores, watching TV, daydreaming, normal, routine, daily stuff. And that's normal and that's okay. The yellow zone is where you are while driving, if you're a good, experienced driver. You may be looking far down the road, but your peripheral vision and other senses, like hearing, are picking up on all kinds of information. It's all being processed subconsciously. You're generally aware of what the cars on either side of you are doing, what's coming up in the rearview mirror, how long that yellow light has been on, and whether you can get through it at your current speed, all kinds of things. You're not really focused on any of that until something falls out of the norm. Then your subconscious signals you to pay attention, to dodge that garbage in the road, to watch that guy who can't seem to stay in his lane, to moderate your speed and keep an eye on that cop who just pulled in behind you. These alerts are what we generally call gut feelings. They're signals that something is different, not right. This is the zone we want to be in, walking down the street, entering a restaurant, in the mall, and especially at a neighborhood meeting or political rally. The earlier we get that feeling, the more opportunity we have to take action. Maybe we can de-escalate the situation. If not, we naturally move into the next zone. The red zone is where the old lizard brain takes control. It begins pumping adrenaline into our system. We experience tunnel vision. Our hearing is muted. We lose our fine motor controls and will often begin to shake. As blood and energy are directed away from our frontal lobes and into our muscles, our capacity for rational thought is severely impaired. This is our natural, all-out fight or flight response. This is our survival mode, and there's nothing you can do to stop it from happening, at least initially. Unless you're being chased by a tiger, this is not a good place for you to be in the midst of civilized society. Now, in a later podcast, we'll talk more about how to deal with the red zone response. But for now, we'll just focus on avoiding it by honing our yellow zone skills. So, we have a natural mechanism that once enabled us to survive in the wild and helps us to survive in the wild of rush hour traffic. How do we get that to work in the kind of situations we're likely to face as an activist working in an uncertain environment? First, you have to establish the norm. We'll never notice if something is different, off, until we're aware of what's actually normal. Let's start with a fairly simple example. Let's say you live in the suburbs. Walk out your front door. Look around. What cars are parked in your neighbors' driveways? What's the condition of their yards, of their homes? When do they go to work? Come home? Do they have children? What are their usual morning, daytime, and evening routines? Who frequently has Amazon leave deliveries at their door? When does the mail and the garbage run? By establishing the norms, you'll notice when something is different. Has a neighbor been gone an unusually long time? Are there strange cars in the driveway? Did somebody's Amazon delivery disappear before they got home? If someone who usually keeps a neat yard starts looking unkempt and their cars aren't moving as usual, something may be wrong. They could be ill. You might want to check up on them, see if they need anything. This is the level of awareness you should bring to every environment that you operate in. You don't have to make a formal study of it. Just open your eyes and ears, observe, and be aware of what you're doing. In any case, always trust your gut. Alrighty, we've barely skimmed the surface of operational security, and we could do a whole series of podcasts about any one of the subjects under that heading. For now, I think what we've covered in the last two podcasts will give you a good start and put you way ahead of most activists. Next week, we'll start talking about our first objective, analyzing the structure and flow of power in our communities, how it's supposed to work, and how it actually works. That's it for this segment of the episode. Back Talk is up next. Welcome back to the second segment of this episode of Red Cell Confidential. Since our first segment ran a little long this week, I'll try to keep this short. Okay. Listener response. Dear Mike, you suck, and your show is... Well, so much for that. Thanks for tuning in to Red Cell Confidential. I hope you've learned something from this week's episode. I really hope you get out of your easy chair and take what you've learned to the streets. Remember, It's all just dreams and hot air till you put your boots on the ground and your ideas into action. If you like the show, subscribe, hit the like button. It really will help me keep this thing on the air. And I'd love to hear your questions and comments. You know the routine. I'll be back next week with more guerrilla tactics and outside-the-box ideas about giving power to the powerless. Until next time, comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Solidarity.